Good morning, Patriots. How are you today? It is 11/12/2020 at approximately 8 a.m. Sip a cup of coffee for me. Or with me, however you want to do it. Make sure you got a good, strong cup. Get your day going. Today, I don't really know. I don't really have an agenda. What I'm going to talk about, things seem to be in a holding pattern. We're waiting for several things. But basically, my comment is today to hold the line. Take a deep breath. You know, the expression comes from, I'll get into that in a second. I do want to cover a couple things first. This is Michael Cook coming to you live from Central Missouri. I hope you're having a great day. I hope that that today turns out to be a blessing from God to you. Like, comment, and share these videos, because by that it allows the algorithms of Facebook to work. Also, if you're watching me on Rumble, go ahead and rumble me. If you're watching me on and follow me. If you're watching me on YouTube, subscribe. I'd appreciate it. Just get the numbers up. We need more people like myself, and I'm not bragging about myself because that includes you. We need to be involved, and in some small way. And maybe that's just hitting your knees and praying every day. Or maybe it's spreading the word out as best you can to your circle of friends and groups of peoples that you hang around with. Because there's a lot of people really, really discouraged with what's going on. If you turn on the news, if you turn on the Fox News or the CNN or the bought and paid for propaganda media, you get a giant infomercial for President-elect Joe Biden. But he's not president-elect until the electors are seated and vote. And there's still a lot of doubt. They are recounting in Georgia as of today, and they're not counting. They're not counting the electronically recounting. They're counting each piece of paper like we did. We filled out the little circles here in Missouri, and we put it in the machine. They're counting the circles. The other thing that they did is they said they had to take the mail-in ballots. They had to take the envelope and put them with the ballot. See, because the security measures are on the envelope, not on the ballot. So the first thing that they were doing at the polling places in states like Georgia and states like Pennsylvania, states like Wisconsin, is they were separating the ballot from the envelope and putting them in separate places and then commingling them, meaning they were taking the ballots and mixing them in to the regular ballot count. This is going to cause a problem when you go to recount and you're trying to figure out what is a legal ballot. You see, 20 years ago in Bush versus Gore down in Florida, down in Broward County, it was 15 days into this thing with Al Gore suing and Bush suing and them suing back and forth and trying to get things settled up in the courts to get to the recount. And it was 15 days before they started, throwing out the hanging chats. Any of you that are my age, remember that. If you're younger than that, you should look it up or ask someone my age. They'll tell you about it. So we're not even 15 days into this thing yet. And they're finding all kinds of irregularities. They're finding software problems, all kinds of stuff. All this is going to come out in the wash. There's lawsuits. And mind you, the media is saying these are frivolous lawsuits. They won't amount to nothing. There are really good attorneys with really strong careers presenting arguments before the Supreme Court with sworn affidavits. Understand that if you falsify a sworn affidavit before the Supreme Court, you go to jail and or are disbarred. So this is not frivolous. You don't ambulance chase in front of the Supreme Court. You get your freaking ducks in a row. Quack, quack. Understand, it takes time, my friends. It takes time for things to develop. This is not something, most of the time, these talking head media types, they get on Fox News and CNN, and they're John Q. Public, lawyer at law. And of course, they're not lawyering. They're on TV talking, and they got a pretty face. That's how come they're on there. And then they're being paid by Fox News or CNN or MSNBC to give their opinion. So what opinion do you think a lawyer is going to give when they're getting paid for their opinion? Maybe their clients? Just saying, just throwing it out there. But they get on there and they say, in legal precedents, back in 1946, it says you can't do whatever it is the president's trying to do because I'm a lawyer and I play one on TV. When in reality, they don't know what the president's presenting. Once the president files the lawsuit, there's this little thing called disclosure, which we haven't got to yet, by the way. Disclosure is a bitch. Goes both ways. We haven't got to any of that. And the other thing is that attorney that's on TV, I'm an attorney on TV. I'm staying in a Holiday Inn last night. I'm smart. When he makes a case, he takes 2.5 years to build it. These people are trying to put it together in 2.5 weeks. Understand what I'm saying to you? So hold the line. And I want to get to something. Hold the line. That is an expression used like in combat and stuff. An example of that is a banzai charge. The Japanese in World War II had a tactic of banzai charging, and that is they would mass their people together in a strategic point, and they would pull their swords, and they would charge all at once. Here's the deal. Most of the time that worked for the Japanese because what it did is it overwhelmed and caused fear. When you're sitting there with your rifle and 4,000 people are running straight at you and you're knocking them down with your rifle, but they're still coming, that puts a little fear in your bones. And that's the intention of the banzai charge, is to put fear in the line and get them to fall back. Because once you start falling back, the banzai charge is successful because now you're in disarray. And what the media is doing, what the DNC is doing, they went out, they forcefully declared Joe Biden president-elect, even though he's not, even though states are still in doubt, even though the numbers aren't there, even though that it's not correct, they forcefully declared him last Saturday. And then you got MSNBC, CNN, and especially Fox News sending out their paid-for propaganda to all of us to try to discourage us, to try to make us flee the line, try to make us to fall back, try to make us to accept the new normal. See, but when they tried the banzai charges against the Americans, see, it worked against the Philippines. It worked against the Solomon Islands. It worked against the little militias in China. It worked for the Japanese. But when they come up against the Americans, first of all, the Americans understood interlocking fields of fire, had better weapons, but they were braver. They would hold the line. If you watch the movie, the TV series that I think it was on HBO called The Pacific. You can get it streaming now. I think it's Tarawa. Is that how you say it? Anyways, the Marines are there, and it's just a company of Marines with a couple of machine guns and riflemen, and they got these sandbag perimeters set up, and they know the Japanese are coming from that way. They know they're coming. They landed and they're coming, and that night they banzai charge them. And these men were down to the very last. They're using machine guns, they're using mortars, and those guys just kept coming. But they held the line. And because they held the line, and this is a true story, that's based on a true story, that just gives you a visual depiction of the story. Because they held that line, they defeated that charge, and the charge collapsed literally on the beach right there. Bodies piled upon bodies. Right now, they're banzai charging us with propaganda. They're telling us, don't worry about it. Just knocked my camera almost over. Don't worry about it, because see, Donald Trump's going to lose this thing, but that's okay. He can run again in 4 years. Don't worry about it, because the Republicans are going to win the House back in 2 years. Oh yes, we look into our crystal ball and we see that Donald Trump's going to run again in 4 years when he doesn't win this one. And we see that they're going to take the House and stop the Democrats cold. Let me ask you a question, Republicans, friends. I know you're out there watching me. You're like-minded. You're like me. What happened the last time the Republicans controlled the House, the Senate, and the presidency? That's right. Nothing. Nothing. They fought the Republican president. And what was the last time that happened when the Republicans controlled the House and the Senate while Barack Obama was president? What did they accomplish? Oh, that's right. Well, elections have consequences. I have a pen and a phone, and I'm going to make it happen. That's right. They did nothing. They did nothing but raise money off of you so they can live like fat hogs in D.C. They did nothing. Let me tell you something, friends. This is the line that we hold. If we do not hold this line, that means that you have to get involved, that you have to get up off of your chair and you have to tell somebody else to hold the line, that you have to get up, get on social media and say, we got this thing. You need to get up. You need to call your congressman and your senator and say, y'all better get behind this president. If you live in Georgia, if you live in Pennsylvania, if you live in Wyoming, golly, man, I'm having a Biden moment. Somebody help me. If you live in one of these states that's contested, then you need to get off your butt, go down to a precinct, help count ballots, make sure they're legit. If you're here in God's country in Missouri, you need to hit your knees and pray. You need the power of God to move. You see, I was just telling somebody, a good friend of mine on the phone, he was old down in the dumps. And I said, man, get ready for a miracle. I've said this before. If you watch my videos, get ready for a miracle. A miracle's about to happen. I don't know what that miracle is. But I said, look, miracles are not common. If they were common, they wouldn't be miracles. They'd be normal. So something abnormal is going to happen. God is on the move. Prepare for something to happen and hold that line. Hold that line. Help is on the way. Hold that line. We're in the battle. We're in the midst of it. The Banzai charge is coming. We're in the midst of it. It doesn't look good. There's only a handful of us. There's more than you think of us, by the way. The prophet was standing on the hill with his servant there, and the enemies were all around him. And the servant looked to the prophet and he said, what are we going to do? The enemies are all around us. And he said, we have armies you don't know about. And he prayed for God to remove the veil from his eyes. And there was hosts of angels surrounding them. See, the battle is not ours. This battle is God's. This nation is God's. I heard it said that God was speaking to a prophetess and said, that's a female prophet. That's a Christian term, and said that America is the only nation in the history of mankind that was created because man loved God. Because man wanted to worship God as he seen fit, not as the government allows. I was talking with another friend of mine who is an immigrant, or his family immigrated from Ukraine. He was telling me about how his family, his grandparents would not refuse to serve God and did it in prison. How other family members, because they refused to reject God and accept communism, had to dig their own graves before they were put in them. He told me how they had to live off the land because they weren't allowed to buy food, because they wouldn't reject God. These people that are trying to steal this election right now actively in front of our faces are communist, Marxist, socialists. They want to replace the God of heaven with the God of government. And they will do it by force if they have to. We are at a crossroads. There won't be 4 more years for Trump to run because they're going to stack the courts. They're going to stack the Senate by creating new states out of D.C. and Puerto Rico. Then they're going to get in there and cheat in those elections and make sure that those are all Democrats. They're going to modify without it being a constitutional amendment. They're just going to have court cases to remove your gun rights. They will turn criminal millions of American people that already own these guns. They will turn criminal the manufacturers of those guns. You see, once they get the guns out of the way, the First Amendment's next to go. You see, you won't be able to talk about what the Bible says about homosexuality, good or bad. You won't be able to talk about politics in one way or the other, because that will be racism, sexism, homophobia. So you'll be hate speech. You won't be able to do the things that you normally do, that you like to do, you won't be able to celebrate the things you normally celebrate, because they will be outlawed by law as to not offend somebody. The flag will become offensive. The veteran will become a threat. Somebody's talking about the vaccine in the chat room. That's just a means of doing all this, convincing you. That's just a means of telling you that what you need to do is just shut up and obey. Put your complacency mask on and say, I'm safe now. I can't get the virus. You know, they're on TV, picking the people that are going to work with this new coming president if he becomes president. One of the guys that he picked said 75 is old enough. After that, you're just a problem. Because we don't need the young. We can kill them before they're born because they're not. And the old are just a problem, so we can get rid of them. That way we can have more money for the productive people, the workers. I've never been a worker, and I'm not going to be a worker. And any politician that calls me a worker, I'll slap them in their face. I don't work for you. You work for me. At least you will till January 20th. We are at a crossroads. And the Hebrew brothers. You know the Hebrew brothers? You know who I'm talking about? The house guys. My shack, your shack, in a bungalow. Those guys. It's Meshach. So I don't know. I don't even know how to say their name. But my shack, your shack, and a bungalow. Those guys right there. Those guys. You've heard the story of the guys that were thrown into the fiery furnace under King Nebuchadnezzar. You see, the king had set up a idol to himself and ordered everybody to worship that idol. Now, he liked these boys. They were good boys. But it didn't matter because they wouldn't bow down to the idol. They only bowed down to the one true God. They wouldn't bow down to his idol of communism. They wouldn't bow down to his idol of Marxism. They wouldn't reject their God, like my friend from Ukraine. You either reject your God or you die. He said, if you don't bow down, I'll throw you into the fiery furnace. And they said, O king, may you reign forever. However, we bow only to the living God. And this pissed the king off, and he pumped that fire up to 1,000 times hotter than it's supposed to be. And he got the biggest brutes in his army to grab those guys and drag them down into the furnace. And as they were throwing those guys into it, hold up, I got ahead of myself. Let me back up a little bit. Rewind that. Those guys were dragged back down the hallway in front of the king. They said to the king, our God is able to save us. You can throw us in that furnace, but our God is able to save us. You can throw us in that furnace, but we will not bow down because our God is able to save us. But even if he doesn't, we still won't bow to you. We serve a living God. And then they had the big, strong brutes drag him down, and they threw him into the furnace. And as they threw him in the furnace, those big, strong brutes died from the heat. And the king looked in. He peered in. It's really hot, he's getting a tan looking in there. And he says, didn't we throw 3 people in there? There's another dude in there. That dude looks like the sons of God. What's going on here? And he called out. He said, Hebrew boys, my buddies, come on out here. And they came out, and their hands and feet were tied together when they threw them in, but when they came out, they weren't tied together anymore. Their clothes didn't smell like soot. Nothing was burnt on their entire bodies. They were perfect. And the people were amazed at the deliverance that God gave these men. And I tell you right now that whatever happens, and I'm believing for a miracle, but whatever happens, God can fix this. God can make what's going on right now change in an instant. Change like at the Red Sea, he could part the waters and then destroy the enemies in the water he just parted. God can move mountains. God can change the situation. But even if he doesn't, I will still worship the Lord God. I will not bow to communism, and I will resist. God has called us as Christians to stand for him. Even if it costs us our lives. The standard of Christendom around the world is persecution. We are living in a time of great blessing in this country, but this is not normal. The standard for Christendom, the standard for God's people, Israel, is persecution. That's the standard. That's the normal. We are living abnormal. That's from a movie. We're living abnormal lives, extremely blessed lives. And even if God doesn't, I will stand with God. If they take my business, I will stand with God. If they take my home, I will stand with God. If the power's turned off, I will stand with God. If they tell me I can't go to church, I'll go anyway. I will stand no matter what. Some of you might join me. Some of you might cower in fear. Your choice is yours, but you get what you get. Been on here too long with my preaching. I feel like I'm preaching today. I don't know why. I don't know. I guess it went the way it was supposed to go. Anyways, if you like this video, share it with a friend. Someone may need to hear it. I do appreciate you guys jumping on. You guys have a great day. I'm going to get off here and get to work. Talk to y'all later.